And at this point, the Germans are winning. They're kicking our butts. So they're winning, and it's Christmas Eve, and Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was General Dwight Eisenhower at that time, later became the President of the United States, went to see Winston Churchill. He went to see Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain at that time, to lay out a plan, and the plan was Operation Overlord. It was the first invasion plan to invade France and to be able to liberate for the Allies. So he went with an idea. It wasn't just an idea of like, hey, we're gonna do this with this with this. It was like, hey, we're gonna do this, but we're gonna do it as one team. So he's asking for something that no man has ever held in history since, or who has ever held before, and that was the title of Supreme Commander. So here's a guy, he's a general from the United States, he's from the United States Army, he's not an Air Force guy, which really the Air Force wasn't around at that time. He's not a Navy guy, he's not a Marine guy, he's not from Great Britain, he's not from Russia, he's not from Denmark, he's not from any of our allies, and he's asking, hey, I want to be the top dog. And he says there needs to be one conductor of this exercise. And the reason why he did this is because he had listened and learned, and he'd said, hey, the way that we're doing this war thing is not working. So he brought everybody together. They gave him the title of Supreme Commander. Now, if you look at history, some of the generals that he worked with had big old egos. You really don't become a 3-star general or an admiral or anything like that if you don't have a little bit of an edge to you. So he was working with people that had egos that didn't want him to be the Supreme Commander. So he had to work with that. He had to listen to them. He had to make a decision, which was Operation Overlord, and keep to that. But he had one general from Great Britain that said, hey, we need to do a slashing approach. We need to attack it, not on your broad scope that you want to do, but we want to attack the enemy. And he's like, look, we can't do this. We're sticking to the master plan. So he allowed that general to have some latitude, but he kept a hold of a master plan. What we see from Dwight D. Eisenhower is the idea that he knew how to make a decision, but he also looked at the decision from other people's point of view. So what we want to do today, this morning, is just to give you some ideas about what decision-making is. So let's look at a big idea right now. Decision-making uses critical thoughts. You got to use your brain, you got to use your feelings. And it uses critical thought, but also predetermined action steps. It's not just like, I'm gonna make a decision. No, there's action steps that are involved in that. There's action steps in decisions. But the goal of decision making, once you've had critical thought and predetermined action steps, the goal is innovation, to make things better for people, to make things better than what they are. So let's define decision-making. Decision-making from Webster is defined this way. It's the act of, or power of deciding. Wow, that was enlightening. And then from a textbook that I used last year, it's called Management 9 Principles of Management. It says that decision-making is choosing from alternatives that are available to you. Okay. Not as big as I think it really is, because decision-making is more than just choosing from alternatives. It's using that critical thought, your mind, your heart, and it's also using those action steps to say, hey, what's the best decision for people and for the organization? So where do we go from here? Well, before you get into decision-making, you better be aware of blind spots. You better be aware of what could go wrong with decision-making, because there are some things. But before we jump into the blind spots, let me break down our big idea a little bit. So it's critical thought. Critical thought uses your mind and your heart. Too many times people think, well, decision-making's got to be made all with my mind. Now, you're all college students, and there's certain relationships that go on in college that are all made with the heart and no mind. There needs to be a balance between the two. If you're all mind, then you're forgetting on something that God created us to be, which is feeling people and the emotions and the relationships with people. So it's got to be mind and heart, all right? So that's one, critical thought. Number two, predetermined action steps. You have to have a plan. You've got to follow the plan, and you've got to trust the plan. You ever heard anybody say trust the process? Decision-making is the same thing. You got to trust the process. And the last one's innovation. Innovation's there to, hey, make it better, to be creative, to make it better for others, and to serve others. That's why we want to have decision-making, because every decision I make affects other people. It just does. So what are the blind spots? What are the dangers of decision making? Well, there's 3 of them, I think. There's probably more. But number 1, there's too many people involved. Have you ever made a decision where you wanted to go around and get 30 to 40 people's input into that decision, and you want to get their approval before you made the decision? That's consensus building. That's not conviction. So there are decisions, yes, I go to my entire family about. I go to Keegan, I go to Audrey, I go to Ethan, and yes, absolutely, I go to Danielle. But the idea is there's sometimes I talk to the kids about a decision. There are other times I'm thinking about them, but I'm not trying to get their consensus because I know they don't want to clean the room. The decision is today, Saturday is room clean day. So I have a conviction about that, and that's the decision. Sometimes you can have too many people involved. Sometimes the second blind spot is you take too much time. Now take your time. Take your time in making a decision, but don't waste time. You can overthink something. Have any of you never overthought something? Yeah, that's what I thought. We all overthink things. We all overanalyze. The same thing with decision making. Sometimes the answer is right in front of you, and you just take so much time to decide, and you agonize over it. You agonize over it because you're just taking too much time. So you have too many people, too much time, and the last one that I think it is you're too anchored in history. Meaning, well, the status quo is, this has worked in the past, why would I change it up? Or another thing is, we're too deep into this. This is going to cost us so much money if we change decisions. So use Renova as an example. We've got a point of sale system that we have spent a lot of money to develop. What were to happen if there would be this point of sale system from heaven that would give us the opportunity to do everything we'd ever wanted and a lot easier, but I sit back there with my arms crossed and go, you know what, we've already invested too much money. I'm not going to allow that decision to happen. That's a blind spot. That's a danger. And the other one is, what if I love my ideas so much that I don't care what you think? That's ego. I'm anchored it too much in that. So it can be too many people, too much time, and it can also be too anchored in history. So now that we've looked at the dangers and we've looked at the big idea, let me give you a process that I've seen work. It's not new to me. It's something that's out there. I've just adapted it. But this is a process that I think could work for you. So here's a 7-step process on decision making. Number 1, you got to identify the problem or the opportunity. Let me say this. You got to identify the opportunity and the issue. I want to say it that way. And if you're not going to find it in your notes, but one thing you will find it will be on the Google Drive, so it's there. But number 1 is you're looking for the opportunity and the issue. Why do you think I do opportunity first? I do opportunity first because I want you to look at life not from a negative point of view, but from, okay, this bad thing happened. What opportunity do I have to make this good right now? So an opportunity and issue. If you're an organization, you want to have a culture that is innovative, a culture that's willing to change, that's always looking at things. Now you know why we do evaluations, SWOT analysis, touch point analysis. It's because if we don't do those things, how do we identify the opportunity and the issues? So that's number 1. Number 2, you've got to listen and learn. What I mean by listening and learning is, first of all, let's look at listen. Listen is different than hearing. Hearing is like you could be hearing me right now, but you're truly not listening. Listening is when you're taking it in, you're processing, you're thinking through, how does this affect my life? That's listening. And learning, same thing. You've got to learn by watching, by doing, by evaluating. So when you listen and learn, you do a couple of things. 1, you've got to understand. You got to seek to understand what's going on. And that means the environment. That means the history. So if I'm making a decision for SGA, I'm looking at that from that decision based upon the history of what's happened before. Because if you don't look at history, you're doomed to repeat history. If you don't look at the environment, and I make a decision that's based upon, hey, we're going to do this great activity, but it's the day before fall break. Not a great idea, because most of you are gone 2 days before fall break. So the whole idea is you've got to look at history, you got to look at the environment, you got to seek to understand. The second thing in listening and learning, you got to ask good questions. So you're going to hear this again: who, why, what, and how. Who does this decision affect? So when I make a decision, who does this decision affect? So even when I'm driving down the road, it could be a quick decision. If I decide to drive 110 miles an hour and the family's in the car, my decision affects Danielle, Ethan, Keegan, and Audrey. Not to mention other people, and not to mention my bank account, because I'm probably going to get caught. Okay? So who does this decision affect? Why is this decision important? What does this decision require? And how will this decision benefit others? That's the 4 questions I look at. Who does it affect? Why is it important? What does it require? And how will it benefit others? So we've got 1, identify opportunities and problems or issues. 2, listen and learn. 3 is develop options. So now that I've got all my data and all those things, I'm developing options. And this, you've got to look back up at step 2, and you've got to look at what did I learn? So I'm developing options. And can I tell you this right now? Do not look for just the obvious or the easy options. Look for the difficult ones. Look for the ones that are like the diamonds in the rough. So how do you do that? Well, whiteboarding is one of it. It's the idea of like, how do I generate ideas that I've never thought about? So maybe you sit down with a piece of paper and you've got to make a decision about where to go to grad school or what to do after school. Write down some things. Just write it all out on a piece of paper and look at those ideas. And a lot of times we take those ideas where there's A, there's B, there's C, but there's also D, E, F, and all the rest of the alphabet. And that's called integrative thinking. It's like, okay, I've got A and B right here. Is there another option? So A might be go to grad school. B might be go home, save money. Could there be a C option that would take elements of both of those, but actually make C better? Yeah, maybe it's go home, stay at home, even though I don't want to live in my parents' house, but go to grad school and save money because I'm staying at home. I can get done quicker because I don't have to work as much. There's C, that's integrative thinking. So that's develop options. So 1, you've identified the opportunity and the issue. 2, you've listened and learned. 3, you've developed options. 4, now you're going to evaluate them. You're going to rank them. So you got to use your mind and your heart here. So your mind will be like, how do I rank this? And I'm going to give you a sheet to how to rank this. So maybe I would say that for me, I rank them in this way. Number 1, is it true to who I am or is it true to the organization that I work in? That's the first thing I rank. So 1 being no, 2 being maybe, 3 being yes, okay? That's how I do it. So the 1 is it true to who the organization is? Is it true to me? Number 2, does it benefit others? Number 3, is it quality? Number 4, is it, the idea that is it attainable? Meaning, can we actually do it? SMART goals. Number 5, is it sustainable? Number 6, is it really needed? I was talking to Dan about a leave yesterday, and there was an idea that I had, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this idea, but after I evaluated it later, it's like, okay, this might not really be needed. It's a great idea, but it might not be needed, so that would rank low. And then the last one, which goes completely opposite, where 1 is yes and 3 is no, is it difficult to implement? Because if I'm making a decision for you and it's difficult to implement, I need to know that and think through that. Because if I gave you every decision I made, if every decision I made things really hard on Ryan, that wouldn't be good decisions. I need to make sure that I'm protecting his emotional, intellectual, physical capital so that he's not worn out. So part of that is that decision making. Now, can I tell you this, when you rank things, you might go, well, the highest ranked thing wins. No. That's where your emotions come in, your feelings, because you've got to trust your gut. There are times that the decision's right in front of you and you're just going, well, this, by the facts, it's saying that this is number 1, but this is number 1, but if I look at it, it's really going to affect other people. So maybe this is not the time for this decision. We need to go with this decision. You're not doing what other people do. There's such a thing as best practice. Have you ever heard of that? Look at best practice. Look around. Can I challenge you? It's okay to do that, but you need to make a decision on what's best for you and what's best for the people that you serve and you work with. So not best practice, what's best. There's a switch. Okay, so after you evaluated, now you got to get into step 5 is now make the decision. Yes, it took 4 steps to get this to make the decision. But if you don't identify, if you don't listen and learn, if you don't develop, and if you don't evaluate, you're going to make a bad decision. So now you make the decision. And in making the decision, you got to do these 3 things. You got to be decisive. You got to know what your decision is. You got to know the who, you got to know the why, you got to know the what, and you got to know the how. And then you've got to live the decision. So if I make a decision to wear name tags, I know I don't have mine on this morning, But if I make a decision to wear name tags and that we're all going to wear it, and I don't wear it, I'm communicating to you that that decision's not important. So I've got to live it. Number two, I've got to provide clarity. I provide clarity so you have awareness of the decision, so that Keegan has awareness of, hey, Saturday is room clean day. Awareness. Hopefully Keegan will buy into that going, this will be a good idea. I'll have clean my room and then I'll get to play outside all the rest of the day, and then it'll take ownership of it. So you're providing clarity for awareness, buy-in, and ownership. And then I'm also seeking that clarity. So using Keegan as an example, I'm seeking that clarity. I'm getting up on Saturday morning, I'm watching him going, is this the right time to say, hey man, it's time to go to your room? Probably not at 8:15 in the morning where he hasn't finished his Cheerios. You know, I need to give the kid a little bit of time. Maybe it's 9:30 that I go like, you know, it's time to go to the rooms now, and I'll go with you. So making sure I'm reading the situation well. So you make the decision. But after you make the decision, you got to implement the decision, right? You got to have a plan. And with the plan, going back to General Eisenhower, he had a plan, but he had contingencies to that. So a lot of times people make decisions, but then they don't think about, how am I going to make that decision happen? A lot of times students make decisions, I'm going to get an A this semester, but they've never thought about what are they going to do to get that A this semester. Another thing, people make decisions like, hey, I'm going to have a good retirement by the time that I'm 60, but they don't start saving till they're 50. Newsflash, unless they save a whole lot, they're in trouble. So what is that plan that they have? So they've made the decision, they've implemented the plan, and the last step, number 7, they've evaluated the plan. And this is where you look at it and go, how do I make it better for other people? It's called continuous improvement. So if I make a decision about name tags, we had name tags last year. To go back to that example, they were the chalkboard name tags. I don't think people liked them. I asked people, they didn't like them. It looked kindergarten-y. So what did we do? I saw that admissions had name tags that were gold name tags. Like, why can't we do that? We went with that option and it's worked out better. But that all happened because of evaluation. So decision making is really necessary and it's hard. But one of the things that you need to know about decision making, it requires that critical thought, meaning, are you engaged in the situation? It requires those action steps. Are you consistent? Are you reliable? And it wants you to be innovative. Are you looking the ways to improve? And you might say right now, it's like, I don't have big decisions. I'm not a good decision maker. Guess what? Decision making is a skill. You can develop it. And I want to challenge you, if you develop these characteristics, and these are also on the Google site, I think it will help you become a better decision maker. Number 1, work on the characteristic of conviction. Do you know what you believe? When you're asked to make a decision 20 years from now and you're in a work environment and some of you are in the medical field and you're asked to do something, do you have the conviction to know, I can't really do that right now? Or then do you have to go back and waver and go, what the heck do I believe? You got to know what you believe. Conviction is number 1. Number 2 is compassion. Do you seek to serve others? That heart for others. So number 1, conviction. Number 3, compassion. Number 2, compassion. Number 3, courage. Are you really true? Do you live it out? Do you have courage? Do you have courage to live out your beliefs? Do you have courage to be compassionate even when that person is wrong to you? Romans 12, you know, it says that when somebody does something wrong to you, you're supposed to do something wrong back to them? No, that's not what it says. It says you're supposed to put kindness there. In the Bible, it says put heaping coals on their head. That's not what it was saying, put burning coals on their head. But basically what it's saying is be nice to them so that they have the conviction of the Holy Spirit because of your actions towards them. So you've had number 1, conviction. Number 2, you've had compassion. Number 3, courage. Number 4, be creative. Be innovative and risky. Do you look for ways to improve and do you take risk? The reason why people don't make decisions, hard decisions, is they're afraid to take risk. Guess what? You will never, 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 I feel like Winston Churchill, never eliminate risk. The only thing you can do is just mitigate it. You can make it less, but you're never going to eliminate it. And I think one of the reasons why people do not make decisions is they're afraid of risk. So you need to be creative, which is innovate in that way. You also need to be consistent. Consistency, are you reliable? When you walk into my office, do you know what you're going to get, or you're like, what the heck is he going to be like today? Part of that is decision making. When you make decisions, you can't make decisions one way today, the next way the next day. You can't do that. That's consistency. And the last 2, One is collaboration. Can you work with others? Can you work with others? If you want to make good decisions, work with others right now. Learn from them. And the last one is cooperation. Do you know how to follow others? If you want people to follow your decisions, and if you want to see what it's like to follow somebody's decision, you've got to do what they need you to do. And this is not my ploy to say, do whatever I tell you to do, but it's an opportunity. If you want to improve on decision making, you need to know what it's like to be a follower and not the person making the decision. So decision making is not an easy thing, but it's a required thing. You're gonna make decisions. You're gonna make decisions today. You're gonna make decisions of where you eat. Now you don't have to go through the 7-step process if you're gonna eat in Chuck's or Stingers today. You don't need to do that. But when you make a decision, I would always encourage you to use your mind and your heart. I would always encourage you to have action steps to think through, okay, who does this decision affect? I told my friends that I would be in Stingers, but now I'm going to Chuck's because I wanna hang out with this person. Does that affect your friends? Yeah, because you told them you would be there. Why is this decision important? Is it really important for me to eat in Chuck's with this other person today? You know, what will this require? Well, it's going to require me probably texting my friends down in Stingers to say, look, I can't come, and hopefully they won't be upset. And how will it benefit others? Maybe it will benefit you because you're in Chuck's up there with a different person, but it might affect your friends down here in Stingers a little bit different. Maybe one of your friends needed to meet with you. That's decision making. It's understanding that everything we live in community. Everything we do affects other people. So make sure you use critical thought. Make sure you use action steps. Whatever those action steps are, you might have a 2-step process. That's fine. But then also make sure you're looking to make things better for the world, but also better for other people.